Okay, so we're diving into some pretty fascinating research today about water, specifically how water quality might be linked to, well, living a really long time.
It's amazing, right? We're talking water and longevity.
Exactly. And we'll be looking at this Kangen water thing you sent over too. Plus, there's that whole thing about mountain water and what makes it so special.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of interesting stuff out there about that. It really makes you wonder, like, how much are we overlooking when it comes to something as basic as, water?
Right. I mean, we all know we need water to survive, but
Like we take it for granted almost.
totally. So this research you found, where does it even start with a topic like this?
Well, it kicks off with a pretty simple question, actually. Why is it that some areas have so many more people living to be like 100 years old than others?
Okay, so like those blue zones everyone's always talking about.
Exactly. Is it all in their genes? Or could it be that, where they live plays a big role too, specifically the water they drink?
Okay, I see where you're going with this. So that's where this Bulgarian longevity study comes in, right? The one that compared people living in the mountains versus the plains.
That's the one.
I was reading that they even like compared siblings to rule out genetics.
Exactly. And that's what makes the findings so compelling. The people up in those mountainous regions drinking primarily mountain spring water, they consistently outlive their siblings living down in the plains.
Wow, okay, that's a pretty striking difference. But how do we get from like longer lifespans to the actual water itself? What makes that mountain water so special?
Right, right. That's the big question, isn't it? Well, one of the things the researchers really honed in on was the level of deuterium.
Deuterium. Remind me what that is again.
It's basically a heavier form of hydrogen. And
Yeah.
they found that mountain water tends to have less deuterium compared to, say, plain water or your typical tap water.
So less deuterium equals longer life. Is that what we're saying?
I wouldn't say it's quite as simple as that. There's some research out there suggesting that high levels of deuterium can actually be harmful to our cells. But
Well,
we need more research to definitively say that lower deuterium levels directly lead to, a longer lifespan.
yeah,
It's definitely a piece of the puzzle, but it might not be the whole picture.
gotcha. So it might not just be about what's in the water, but about the water structure itself. You mentioned hydrogen bonds earlier.
Yes. Hydrogen bonds are like essential for understanding this. Think of them as these tiny forces that link water molecules together.
Okay,
And the way those bonds are arranged, that kind of creates a network.
I'm with you.
The strength and stability of that network, well, that could affect how efficiently water carries nutrients and removes waste from our cells, all that good stuff.
Right, so the structure matters. Okay, I think I'm getting it. So where does Kangen water fit into all of this? It doesn't come from a mountain spring, does it?
Nope, not at all. Kangen water is actually created through a process called electrolysis. Essentially, they're using an electric current to restructure the water, separating it into alkaline and acidic streams.
Okay,
The alkaline stream, that's what's marketed as Kangen water.
interesting. And they're claiming this restructured water is somehow better for you. What's the science behind that?
Well, the research you sent over, they use this method called DNES to analyze a bunch of different water samples.
DNES.
Yeah, it stands for Differential Non-Equilibrium Energy Spectrum. Basically, it looks at the energy spectrum of the water, which can reveal like these really subtle differences in its structure.
Okay.
What they found was that Kangen water showed a unique pattern, different from regular tap water, suggesting that the electrolysis process might be restructuring those hydrogen bonds we were talking about.
So you're saying they're actually changing the structure of the water. That's wild. But I mean, does the change in structure really mean there are like actual health benefits?
That's the million-dollar question, right? The research is definitely still in its early stages. While these structural changes are really interesting, we need more studies to know for sure if Kangen water actually provides any specific health benefits. It's not a slam dunk.
That makes sense. So we've got this mountain water, which is naturally low in deuterium, and then we've got Kangen water, which is restructured through electrolysis. And they're both being looked at for their potential link to longevity. Is there any connection between those two besides the fact that, they're both water?
Well, there might be. Think back to what we were talking about with those hydrogen bonds and water clusters.
Okay.
The theory is that the electrolysis process used to make Kangen water could be affecting the size and stability of those clusters, potentially making it kind of similar to the structure you'd find in natural mountain water.
So Kangen water is trying to replicate what happens in nature. Fascinating.
Yeah.
But, we got to be careful about jumping to conclusions here.
Oh, absolutely. Correlation doesn't equal causation.
Right.
We need a lot more research to really understand how these structural changes in water actually impact our health in the long run. It's a really cool area of research, but it's important to stick to the science and not get carried away by all the hype.
For sure, for sure. So I'm hearing you say
Exactly. So when you see all this marketing around structured water,
structured water.
yeah, structured water, like it's this miracle cure-all. But honestly, the science just isn't there to really back all that up.
Okay, back up for a second. What even is structured water?
So it's basically another layer to this whole water puzzle we're talking about. It's water, but the hydrogen bonds are arranged in this very specific way, supposedly forming these like hexagonal shaped clusters.
Okay.
And some people believe that because of this structure, it's more easily absorbed by our cells, leading to better hydration and all sorts of amazing health benefits.
So it's kind of like those water clusters we were talking about before, but like even more organized. And the idea is that Kangen water might be creating something similar through that electrolysis thing.
That's one theory out there, yeah. But again, we need more research, more evidence to really know if structured water actually lives up to all the hype. I mean, it's definitely an area that needs more research.
It seems like there's just so much we still don't know about water. But, okay, going back to what we do know, this research also looked at the minerals in these longevity-linked waters, right? What did they find there?
They found some pretty interesting stuff, actually. The waters from those regions with a lot of centenarians, like those mountain springs, they often had higher levels of certain minerals.
Which ones?
Calcium and magnesium, especially.
Makes sense. Calcium's super important for strong bones. And magnesium, that plays a role in, what, like a million different bodily functions?
Right,
So
exactly.
maybe these longevity-linked waters are just giving people an extra dose of those essential minerals they need?
It's a solid theory. And it just adds another layer to the potential benefits of drinking this kind of water.
Yeah.
It might not be just about low deuterium or a specific structure. It could be the minerals, too. Or maybe it's all of these factors working together to like really boost our health and help us live longer.
I'm starting to see why you're so into this whole water thing. It really is more complex than we usually think about. But let's circle back to those water clusters for a sec. You mentioned they might act as a kind of delivery system in our bodies. Can you break that down a little more?
Sure. So the idea is that those clusters of water molecules, all linked together by their hydrogen bonds, they can actually encapsulate stuff.
Encapsulate.
Yeah, like surround and hold things. And then they transport those things to our cells. Nutrients, oxygen, you name it. And then they also help to get rid of waste products.
So you're saying like the size and stability of these clusters, that could actually impact how efficiently our cells are, getting what they need and getting rid of the stuff they don't.
Exactly. And the theory goes that water with smaller, more stable clusters, like you might find in mountain water or create through that Kangen water process, well, that might be more efficient at this whole cellular delivery thing.
Wow. So the structure of the water could actually directly affect how well our cells are functioning.
That's what the research seems to suggest, yeah. But of course, we need more studies to really confirm all this. But if it's true, I mean, that really changes how we think about optimizing our health, like at the most basic level.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Deuterium, minerals, water clusters. What's the bottom line? Should we all be ditching tap water and installing Kangen water machines in our kitchens? Or, like, moving to the Bulgarian mountains?
Whoa, hold on. I definitely wouldn't recommend making any big life changes based on just this one study. Remember, a lot of things affect our individual health, not just water. Genes, lifestyle, diet, it's all connected.
So water is just one piece of the longevity puzzle, but it's an important piece.
Exactly. I think this research really encourages us to, think more about the water we're drinking. Maybe it's time to, start paying attention to where our water comes from.
And if it's giving us the right balance of minerals and how pure it is.
Right.
So filtering our tap water, that's a good first step then.
It can be, especially if you're worried about contaminants in your water.
It's okay.
And if you're thinking about, exploring other options like bottled spring water or even Kangen water, do your research. Talk to your doctor. See what makes sense for you.
Solid advice. No magic bullets, but definitely something to think about. It just seems like there's so much more to learn about water and how it can affect our health.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so exciting to study. We're just scratching the surface, really, when it comes to understanding how water interacts with our bodies.
You've definitely given us a lot to think about. And I'll be honest, after all this talk about water, I am getting a little thirsty.
Me too.
Uh-huh.
A nice glass of, well, let's just say some high-quality H2O sounds pretty good right now.
I'm with you there. But before we go grab our water bottles, any final takeaways for our listeners? What should they remember from this deep dive?
I think the most important thing to remember is that water is so much more complex than we often realize. It's not just about, quenching our thirst. It's about giving our bodies what they need to function at their best.
And that paying attention to things like the structure of our water, what minerals are in it, and where it comes from could make a real difference for our health and how long we live.
Exactly. Water is essential for life. And the more we understand it, the better choices we can make about the water we drink.
So hydration, but with intention, right?
I like that. Hydration with intention.
Perfect. Well, on that note, let's raise a glass to water. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, cheers to that. Makes you think, doesn't it?
Mm.
All this talk about water and what it could do. I mean, what does the future hold?
Now you've got me curious. Water that cleans itself. Water that tastes like pizza. What are we talking here?
Pizza-flavored water. Maybe not. But then again, who knows? I mean, the research we've been talking about, it really points to some pretty amazing possibilities, right?
Okay.
If we can tweak the structure of water to make it, better in some way.
Yeah.
Well, imagine what else we might be able to do with it.
Like what?
What if we could create personalized water? Water that's tailored to each person's needs.
Personalized water. Okay, now that sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. What would that even look like?
I'm talking about water that's designed to help athletes recover faster. Or water that, boosts your brain power when you're studying. The possibilities are kind of crazy when you think about it.
I see what you're saying, but is that even realistic? Can we really, control the structure of water that precisely?
It's definitely a hot area of research.
Yep.
Scientists are looking at different ways to do it.
Like how?
Things like using magnetic fields or sound waves to actually
Yeah.
influence how those water molecules arrange themselves. It's pretty cutting-edge stuff.
So you're saying we might be on the verge of, a water revolution. Count me in.
It's definitely an exciting time. And think about it. If we combine those new technologies with what we're learning about how water structure affects us, well, who knows what we could achieve? It's like we're taking something we thought we knew inside and out, water, and suddenly realizing there's this whole other universe to explore.
It's amazing to think that something as basic as water could still be so full of mystery. This deep dive has really opened my eyes. We started with the simple question about longevity, and now we're talking about personalized water and the future of health. Wild.
It really just goes to show that even the most basic things can have incredible potential, right? Water is at the heart of life, and the more we learn about it, the better we can use it to improve our lives.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, to everyone listening out there, next time you have a glass of water, take a second to really think about it, about how amazing it is.
And never underestimate the power of a good deep dive.
Oh.
Until next time, stay curious.
Cheers to that.